Hey, Lowell.
Hey, how you doing there, Eric?
Hold on, let's see. I'm on my phone. I'm piecing this all together while I'm on the road. But hold on. Here we go.
There you go. There you go.
Hold on, let me take off my jacket. Be in business in no time.
There you go. Very nice. Oh. Where are you? Where you
Actually, I'm in
are for
Philadelphia.
work?
I just haven't made it back to my office. So,
Oh, okay.
but I got a
Okay.
coffee. I got a
There you
window.
go.
Of course,
All
I don't
right.
have headphones. So this is
Uh-oh.
this. I have a live studio audience here at the Logan Hotel in Philadelphia.
Well, it looks nice. It looks like a swanky little spot. So
It is
there
nice.
you
We
go.
come here a lot for work meetings. So.
Yeah.
You know,
Nice.
lawyer people, fun stuff. You know that.
Yeah. Lots of fun stuff. Lots of fun stuff. Well, so
Lots of
you
fun
know,
stuff.
you're in Philly. We got to get your take Fetterman or Oz. So
Really.
how excited are you that that'll finally be over in a few weeks?
A little nervous that Oz has picked up some traction in the polls. I mean, I don't
But
think he's going to win, but I mean, and Mastriano, I don't know if you know anything about him, the governor candidate. Oh my
no,
goodness. And not a little nuts, but um, yeah,
yeah.
let's hope. It's the polls were like 10 point plus margins up until like a couple of weeks ago. So are we live, by the way? Am I on the?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, we're
Oh,
live.
all
We're
right.
live. Yeah, we're live. So I don't know if anyone's watching right now, but we are live.
Yeah.
So no
That
cuss
fun
words
lawyer
there.
people comment was just for you.
There you go. It's always
But
audience of
actually, this
one.
is a
Audience
league
of one.
league full of lawyer people. So
Yeah, there
um,
are there are a bunch of us. At least a third of the league are attorneys.
condolences and
No, more than that.
congratulations to
Five.
the other
That's
two
it.
thirds.
Yeah, five of 12 are lawyers. God, that's terrible.
Yeah,
Oh, so
that's the
I know.
saddest ratio. That's the saddest statistic I've heard in my tenure with this league thus far.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, how have you been? Give us all a little update. You got your Phillies in NLCS.
I got
So
my
no
Phillies.
no
I'm
Yankees
here
chat for now.
in Philadelphia. I went to the two playoff games this past weekend that were our first two since 2010. I'm sorry, 2011 in Philadelphia. The
Wow.
year after we lost to an unnamed team. Actually 2 years after. What happened was we won it all in 08. That was our first and definitely not year in after forever, and definitely not our best team. Actually, we made it in 2007. Forget about that. Won it all in 2008, and then each year we went one series backwards. So next year we lost to that unmentionable team from New York that's still around in these playoffs. And then the next year we lost the Giants in the LCS with Cody Ross, a bunch of no names.
Yeah.
At the right time. Yeah, you remember Cody Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 11, we lost the Cardinals in a pitcher's duel, Game 5 between Carpenter and Roy Halladay. It was a 1-0 loss, and Howard broke his Achilles on the very last at bat, running to first base, and that was 11 years ago. So it was lit at Citizens Bank this past weekend. It was like the bat. It was. I've been told. I had the privilege of being in a lot of incredible games. It was up there. It was great. So we're gonna keep it going.
That's good. Yeah, that's awesome. I remember being there. We went to see a Phillies Giants game 2011, and the unmentionable words that were hurled at me in my Barry Bonds jersey, based on the 2010 playoff results, was definitely memorable. So we'll leave it there. But
well, I love Barry Bonds, and I liked Joe's comments a couple weeks back on the pod about the judge hysteria, which is warranted. But as he said, like it's a number in the record books. Like, what are people talking about?
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. A friend of mine works for Fanatics doing the memorabilia sales, and we're having a long conversation about how the Pujols 700 is really a much more impressive record when you think about it, and yet everybody, all of the talk and all the attention was for Judge, but the Pujols 700 ball is not more valuable because of the Yankee thing, but much more impressive when you think about what it takes. He's one of 4 players to hit 700. So
Yep,
gives you
he's
a
the
little bit of
man,
perspective.
and we knocked him
So.
out. He's never coming back.
I mean, he's probably really like 50,
Yeah, right.
the
Like,
odds
why
are
not
that
come
he's,
back? Yeah.
the
Oh,
odds
he's
are
really
his
50
burst.
years old. I thought you
Well,
meant
I
like
don't know,
50,
right?
50 coming back.
Oh, no. All those Latin players, the birth
Whatever
certificate
happened
issues,
to
right?
the guy from you have to know the guy, the kid from Miami in the Little League World Series?
I don't know. I'm sure he's, total nobody now.
Well, if anyone's watching, I would like to know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll put LaMagna on it. Let's see. We got a couple people live. No, we're not going to discuss NHL reverse retro jerseys. We're not going to talk about that. The Sharks are terrible. They don't deserve
Lizzie
any
would come
airtime.
on. Lizzie would happily come on and talk about retro NHL jerseys. So,
yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I'll leave it there.
By the way, Lizzie loved getting to meet many of the league members who were in Philly this summer. And I think that, knock on wood, it clearly was good luck for the Phillies. So we thank everyone who came.
Yeah, well, I'm glad everybody or a lot of the league was able to make it for the first time going back live in a couple of years. That must have been, unfortunately with the baby, couldn't make it, but he's I believe he's napping right now. So.
Oh yeah, I think that's what you
crossed.
asked me for a beginning is update on life. So tell the league, tell me how are you guys doing?
Good, man. I mean, he's 11 weeks, so he's doing pretty good. He doesn't sleep all the way through the night consistently, but every once in a while he'll make it through the night. But usually we're able to get a solid amount of sleep. He's only
you look good. You look well rested. I don't sleep consistently through the night, so
I don't know how well rested I am, but he usually gets up around 3:34. So it's not too bad. Well, only once during the night, but we're working on it, trying to slowly phase that out. So yeah, it's been pretty good. It's wife goes back to work next week, so it'll be a big adjustment now as we transition to full-time grandma or nanny situation for a couple months before daycare. So it's like that's going to be a shift where neither of us are home. Not every day, but most days nobody's at home. None of the parents anyway. So that'll be a shift for her. I've been going back to work for 2 months, so for me it's much less of a thing. But overall, he's pretty good. No complaints. But
I feel like it's all exciting, even the adjustments that are are tough are exciting because kids are resilient and just loving life. We're having the best time, and I need to meet your child and Joe's child, and
well, that's in a couple of years we'll probably have enough children they can have their own league. That's where we need to push this.
Clearly, I need some guidance on how to run my team. So,
well, this season,
yeah.
We could start there.
No, I feel good. We could talk about it. I feel good about my move and my lovely trade partner Matt. He's on the live boards, Matt. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. So
one offer, one counter, and we got it done.
Did you know that? Did you realize they were 2024 and not 2023 picks?
I did. The whole premise was that he had already given away his first round pick for next year.
Yeah.
So,
that sets you up really well, 2 years from now. Obviously, that's a little ways away, but that does set you up nicely when you think about it.
To repeat,
yeah. I don't know that you'll be looking at a three-peat or any kind of
no, not a three-peat. I'm not concluding this year.
No, I don't think so. Did you feel bullied into after week one, not having played AJ Dillon, and then now you have to play both Green Bay running backs?
Okay, my statement wasn't about feeling bullied. It was I felt for my team the disrespect coming from a certain member of the Carr household, the Miami. So I was I guess you were at the draft, but I was fretting about it wasn't a handcuff situation, but I thought about how, I've been keeping Aaron Jones all these years, and who knows how it would turn out with his future. I was so surprised that Green Bay re-signed him a year ago to a 3 or 4 year contract because Dylan had already clearly established himself as a capable NFL running back. So I didn't love the pick when I made it. But also, I think, the way that my team worked out this year, I felt good about generally. And I think when I made that trade with Matt, I had like the 5th most points or something. But, it's one great thing about this league is that, the matchups hadn't gone my way, and it was a good moment. Plus, your not so great trade proposal, just fueled. I texted Joe and Matt, and I was like, all right, well, I'm being disrespected here. Who wants my players? And Matt was like, I'll take them. So that's how to make a deal with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think that everyone's going to value different players differently and feel where they ultimately want to go. It was it was interesting to me to see kind of that first big trade to be 2024 picks, not 2023s. Not that it ultimately sets you up well down the line. You still can keep, Debo till you get to that point, for example. But yeah, the Packers situation, I don't know what's going on there. They're obviously not playing well. They haven't figured out how to use both of them in the same game consistently in a way that would be productive, either throwing or running. Don't really get it. But they don't have any weapons. They're now rumored to be going after Claypool in the trade market to see if they can get an outside receiver. I don't know if that really makes a difference. They just don't seem to be cohesive. They're not clicking on offense or defense. But I feel that pain. And sometimes in the draft, you get stuck making a pick where you don't really love it, but you feel like I kind of have to take this player or have to accept the value in that moment. So, it's definitely a tough one to take
him. The 3 picks, I don't know if you're looking at, I've actually the draft part, but like the 2 or 3 picks beforehand were the guys I wanted. And I thought about if I couldn't get them, then I would go with Dylan. And, there was a little bit of added value in having Jones already. And there was a little bit of subtracted value from that. But I don't know. Yeah,
that's all right. That's all right. I mean, it was tough, right? You just barely missed out on Waddle, Montgomery, Higgins. Oh, you snagged Higgins, but I mean, you missed out on Waddle and Montgomery right before, and that kind of Breece Hall about half a round before. So you're kind of stuck. If I want a running back, you're looking at Dylan, Etienne, Elijah Mitchell. That's not really a great overwhelming option. You have to sort of stick with whatever you think is maybe the safest pick, and that's what you did. So.
The Waddle would have worked out great. I didn't realize that was the one, but now I remember.
Yeah, Waddle. I mean, it's that offense has been a revelation, But I think overall, though, we look around the league, and obviously Tua's been out for a while, but scoring's down in the NFL. Explosive plays are down. I think it's impacted fantasy scoring. We just saw the lowest scoring week by far this season. Haven't really seen. You're watching Red Zone, you don't see a ton of explosive plays going on. Do you feel like that's, something that's just a blip here, or we just all have to adjust to the way that the season's going to go, where it's really less about explosive plays and much more about, the consistent high floor type of player?
Well, I should have thought about this because not only did you put it on the rundown, but you previewed it in your league post last night, and I just went on the road. So what are your thoughts? I'd like to deflect on this one. I can't think of like a straightforward reason why that would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it is defenses. We've seen this against the Chiefs and against the Bills, where defenses, I think, are more so playing cover 2, 2 deep safeties to try to take away the deep pass and the deep play, or the explosive play, and kind of letting quarterbacks in general go, all right, you can dink and dunk and do 14-play drives down the field. And I think defenses are kind of banking on, against most teams, that's going to result in mistakes or turnovers more often than it's going to result in enough touchdowns to beat them. Now, against an elite offense, maybe it doesn't work. So I think there's some of that. I think, ideologically, there's been a shift in how to approach that part of the game. I also think that if we think about it, right, like Green Bay is usually, when they had Adams, a lot of explosive type plays, deep shots. there's no more Adams there. So that's a much different offense. I think, the Bengals have struggled a lot until last week, and the Higgins injury impacts that. So I think there's certain examples where it's either injuries, change of offense at Seattle, that without Russell Wilson, they don't take the same kind of shots. And Russell Wilson struggled in Denver. So there's lots of little micro examples, Stafford's elbow and his inability to push the ball down the field. But I think there's also a defensive scheme element. Unders have hit 2/3 of the time this season. So scoring in general, it seems to be lower. There does seem to be a trend to these lower scoring games, less offense. So I don't know if it's one thing, but it's definitely something to watch for. And I think it's trickled into fantasy because there aren't that many elite fantasy running backs this year. I mean, they're just, most of the good running backs have struggled. And unless you're someone like Drew, who just happens to have 3 stud running backs, everyone's kind of looking around going, man, I need some help. I think that's caused fantasy scoring to be lower, but I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Well, I still got AJ Dillon if anyone's looking.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm good. I'm set. I'd rather trade a receiver away for 50 cents on the dollar than take on AJ Dillon.
Yeah.
So
No, you're right. It has been very bizarre, even with all the trends we've seen. How teams build around quarterbacks, offensive and defense, in the last couple of years, to see that like bell cow go almost completely away is pretty wild. Not completely away. Dalvin Cook's a bell cow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? I mean, Cook had a huge game last week, but that was sort of the anomaly for him this season. You look at it, Saquon's been very good. Eckler's had some monster games, and you look at the overall top 10 or so, and you see your mainstays, your Cook, your Derrick Henry, Fournette, Barkley, McCaffrey, if they can stay healthy, Chubb, Eckler. But you think about it compared to, if you factor in receivers, the top 2 scorers are receivers. The tight end's the 5th or the 6th overall scorer so far. There's only really 2 running backs that are really at the top there, the top 4 or 5 overall fantasy, scorers when you think about skill positions, where I just think in general, it may change over the course of the year, but it just feels like running backs have struggled to be consistent outside of a few names. And that's really, I think, hurting a lot of fantasy teams because you expect running back to be a very consistent position, especially at the top end. So, but I just don't think it's been that way this season. So we'll see if that's something that picks up. But last week, I mean, 4 teams broke 100, but it wasn't exactly high scoring. Only 2 teams got over 110. I mean, we had some really putrid scores. It's quite quite embarrassing when you really look at it, right? I mean, Bodson, you didn't break 70 and Jacobs didn't break 75. So that was pretty.
We both just got big trades. So
I know, but I mean, but even then, look, Manny didn't even break 60. You just look around the league. I mean, a lot of really, really low scores. And yeah, there are certain instances where that's trade related and other instances where it's not. But speaking of those trades, and this is sort of a general topic that I want to touch on, get your sense of, and I think it's something maybe in the off season to revisit. I don't think as a league we have any issue with owners can do what they want season to season if they feel like, look, I'm not being successful. I want to maximize my value now, looking toward to build in the future. My concern is sort of the 4 weeks into the season, 5 weeks into the season, someone just completely punts, and just completely fire sales their team. And then you end up with 3 or 4, maybe sort of super teams. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it merits thought as to, is that an issue? Are there ways to try to not prevent teams from doing that in the season, but to maybe so it's not done so early in the year? I mean, obviously you're one of the teams that sort of sold a lot of guys. Do you feel like that's something that is a concern of now it's so early in the season where multiple teams are just like, I'm out, I'm done, I don't care, I'm moving on to next year?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a function of the of several of the rules we have in place that dictate how league members value this year as opposed to next year. So I think the conventional wisdom, at least that I've always been familiar with, is that having an earlier trade deadline helps ward against that issue because, I mean, I wasn't, I think I was 1-4. I wasn't actively thinking about turning everything around until you, you chastise my players. And I really liked the deal that Matt put on the table. I thought it was a reasonable, thoughtful deal, and that was a mutual interest. But I wasn't thinking that I was giving up my season at that time. But I think having an earlier trade deadline actually helps ward against more people thinking, well, this year is absolutely over, nothing left to play for. I think the earlier you make the trade deadline, the less teams you'll find have made substantial trades at all. And I think that's to the benefit of the league. And then the other issue that I know we've talked about in the past, it didn't come into play with this trade, but certainly comes up a lot, is keepers and the acceleration of draft picks, because you also, I think, see a lot of keepers exchanged around the trade deadline based on next year's value. And there's a lot of value in low-end keepers or keepers with low picks that if a 16 is going to be a 15 next year, that adds a lot of value for someone looking at next year. So I think there's a less direct relationship with the keeper system and the amount of trade activity you see. But I've never seen a trade deadline that says you can't trade it until a certain point in the season. And this is certainly I can't remember ever in any fantasy setting thinking about making a trade early. But I think it very often comes up trading late in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the deadline, people feel a crunch. They feel like I need to make a move, so the cost maybe goes up or changes for certain players, and I get that. I guess my concern is, this season, is it a one-off versus is it a trend where next year, someone is 1-3 and they just say screw it. Again, we've seen teams start 2-4 and win a championship. There are teams in this league that are good, that have good players that arguably only really need to make one or two moves to be right there. I think about Drew's team. I mean, he has 3 of the top 10 running backs. He could use an upgraded quarterback and an upgraded receiver, but he does those two things. That's a team that is right there. It's not someone, you could be 3-3 or you could struggle out the gate and go, oh my God, he started 0-3. What am I going to do? Now he's turned it around. And it's got 3 straight wins where he's probably get a win against Evan, and he's maybe 1 or 2 little moves from being really competitive. So my concern is this going to become a greater trend year to year where people say, hey, it's been a month, I'm 1-3 or I'm 2-3 or something, and just say, I don't care. That's the concern that I have. And maybe we don't know that until next season. But it is something. And I know we have moved the trade deadline before, and it is worth consideration. Does that matter? Does that impact this to a big extent? I don't know. I don't know if this is the way this season has unfolded so far, sets up and creates the situation that we're in or that we've seen versus anything else. My question on your trade, though, is I do think you could have got more value for Kelce. He was coming off 4 touchdowns. Just felt like could have squeezed him a little more.
All right. Well, keep that in mind next time, Matt. You got a wonderful deal. I look forward to our next trade.
Yeah. So looking ahead, looking forward here. I mean, are you done selling? Do you want to make a sales pitch? To
I do think. Well, if you recall, I traded myself a couple weeks back for Dak, who comes back hopefully this week. So, and if you look at how Dak's schedule lines up in the playoffs, I think he would be an asset to a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks. So that's my pitch.
You've got like 4 quarterbacks,
Yeah. Well, and Matt wanted Geno Smith, who obviously has turned out really well this year. But I would think the most value of those quarterbacks were in Dak. So we'll see. I won't be surprised if by the end of the year, Dylan is the sole lead in Green Bay. You know how quickly quarterbacks they come and go, but yeah, but I feel good about how the next couple of years line up, and I still have some talent that maybe there's a chance I can sneak in, because I did at the time of that trade until this past week where I performed miserably. Had a lot of points on the board, just not much to show for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean that's part of it,
how
right?
are we not talking about your team? This is like all off season, and in previous pods, the talk has been about Wagner, whose team is terrific. I don't know how they're not performing better, but your team is killing it. How are you feeling, Kamish?
I feel good. I mean, look, it's. I'm a little concerned. This week I've got to play Wagner. I have some pretty important buys, right? The Eagles are on bye, Josh Allen's on bye, so I've got to play Mahomes with at least one arm behind my back. We'll see. I like my team. I've made moves that I felt were necessary and had eyed for some time to try to improve in certain areas. But there are, I don't know that I don't feel like I can make other moves. I'd like to offload players. I feel like I have too much depth. I need to kind of free up space in some way so that my decisions can be easier to make. But I feel good. I like that I'm going to get Keenan Allen back healthy. I don't really know what the full Marquise Brown situation is, so that concerns me. Is he going to go on IR? Is he not? Is it a 4 to 6 week injury? Is it longer? That one concerns
back this week, right?
Yeah, Hopkins comes back. I mean, I don't think that hurts the value a little bit, but if you have Hopkins and Brown in that offense, they should both be able to put up points. It's more so, what do you do until then? Does he have to eat a roster spot? That's the concerning thing. But yeah, I mean, the season is gone. I mean, I didn't think I'd be undefeated, but with all the picks I had, I figured I would be good and be able. And I was sort of going to go all in to say, screw it. I want to, really want to be competitive this year. But we'll see, right? Like, one injury and it changes everything. If you lose a receiver, a running back, quarterback, whatever. So I feel like I still have a lot of nerves and trepidation as the season unfolds, because I don't know, how good it's going to go. And at the same time, Matt is sitting there 2 games behind me, and I've got to keep my distance ahead of him to win the division, because what I don't want is to be in the playoffs and have to go through, something like Wagner and then Joe or something to get to the championship. I'd much rather be in a situation where I have to be one good team to make the championship instead of 2. So, that's kind of the bigger concern or thought, is setting myself up with that kind of path. So, but obviously there's a long time between now and then. So that's kind of how I feel. And yeah, I mean, it's good to be nice. Hopefully I'll win and, then have a Miami draft and everybody gets to party a little bit. That wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad. You see, I mean, you got to enjoy it. I know you definitely have the cautious part of cautious optimism down.
Yeah.
But your team looks pretty good. Anyone could get injured ever, but it looks good. I'm impressed.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it's fantasy football. Anything can happen. Just looking ahead, I should say, this week, right? Like, I don't expect to win this week. Let's update this now that I added Tua. But let's see some big matchups, right? I think we expect Matt to beat Eric. Eric's really struggled this year, but there's some big games. Drew can get to 4-3, really a surprise for him. It's certainly possible that Jacobs gets to 4-3. I think at the post draft, I would not have said that my division was going to have 3 or certainly could have 4 playoff teams. And that's how it looks right now. That's pretty crazy. I don't know if it'll hold up, but certainly something to watch. And, I'm curious to see if Manny make moves to sort of improve their teams to become more competitive, because they have good players and have good talent. So I'm excited how this week goes. As for you get Paul. I mean, in a battle of, the barely alive teams, how do you feel going up against the Ass Farm?
I mean, it's always a pleasure to go up against the Ass Farm. I think good times will be had by all in our matchup. We're gonna have a good time. Everyone's gonna have fun. There's no doubt about that.
I'm excited.
No, Paul's been doing a good job building for the future. I like his.
Yeah, but the problem is you can only keep 2 players.
Yeah, no, that is a problem.
He has like 7 possible keepers: Drake London, Olave, Dobbs.
Don't forget about the great Temple Owl, Brandon McManus.
Right, Brandon McManus, Burrow, Bateman, Garrett Wilson, DeAndre. I mean, he's got 6, 7 players you could keep, and that's, I think, the problem is it's really Jameson Williams, right? Like, you only get to keep 2, and at the offseason, maybe you can trade 1 or 2 at the deadline or in the offseason, but you're not trading 4 or 5 of these guys. And so that, I think, is the problem that Paul will face is, okay, I drafted, and I get it, draft position and everything else, but you have to at some point decide which ones you want and then figure out who's really in need for a keeper that would benefit from that. Because I think it's really difficult to just pile on, have 6 or 7 or 8 of these guys and expect to trade them all. I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah.
So.
And I think everyone thinks their own keepers are more valuable than the rest of the league thinks they are, right? Just because they're on your consciousness more, maybe.
I think so, right? I mean, naturally, you overvalue your players or your assets. I mean, same thing in any aspect of life, right? Naturally, you think your players are better than the ones you're trading for and all of that. But, for as much as Paul wants to get everyone to trade for Olave or Wilson or something, it's just difficult to make those moves unless you identify a team that maybe only has 1 really good keeper and you say, look, make this move. You also can keep them for, potentially years. So, so I know Paul will continue to pester me about trading for these players all season. I'm okay with that. I just I find it hard to believe that he's going to trade 4 or 5 of them at the value he wants, right? No one's going to give a 2nd-round pick for Olave if they're not going to keep him. And even then, I don't know if they give that high of a pick, right? So I think it's hard. You have to marry what you value a player with what someone's willing to pay, given all those facts. So we shall see.
We shall see.
So anyway, sir, best of luck to you, this rest of the season. I'm excited to see what 2024 holds for you.
2024 is going to be a great year.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll get back to your office safely, and we'll catch up next time.
Go Phils.
All right, take that Yankees chat. Phillies fan here.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned the undefeated Birds, but how much
schedule is a joke.
Can y'all take in one pod?
I mean, the Eagles' schedule is a joke. They're going to go like 14-3 or 15-2 or something stupid just because the schedule is a joke. I don't,
Okay.
Okay. Other than the Packers,
the Giants. If that's a slate to the Giants, I will take it.
Okay, but think about it, right? The Eagles. We'll just finish on this, right? We'll talk about the Eagles. The Eagles don't play the New York Giants till like week 14 or something, right?
What will their record be then?
Probably like 12-1 at this rate. But so you almost blew it against Detroit. Fine, whatever. The Jags, feisty, but you pretty much controlled that game. Dallas
we controlled Detroit too. They, scored a bunch of garbage time.
But let's see, you're on bye. Then you get Pittsburgh, Houston, Washington, Indy. Then it's the Packers. So maybe Thanksgiving weekend, maybe that's competitive. Maybe that's a tough one. At Indy, okay, maybe. Titans, doubt it. At the Giants, okay, legitimately could be a test. But that's week 14. At Chicago, joke. At Dallas, who knows if Dak's healthy or not. Then it's Saints, who I don't know what to make of them. That who knows what'll be going on with that team. And then you finish with the Giants, week 18. So it's not exactly a murderer's row. You haven't really played anybody other than the Vikings, who look to be, or the Jacksonville, I guess we'll give it to them, who look to be
Vikings
actually
only
good.
Lost. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So The
I
Eagles'
think your
schedule
premise,
isn't
though,
that
I
tough.
think your premise is that the Eagles are at least good or very good to beat those teams. You just don't know how good they are.
I think the Eagles are a very good team, but I do not think they are the best team in the league. They may be the best team in the conference because I don't think the conference is elite. San Francisco, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, the Rams have played well or have some certain big issues. So the Eagles are definitely look like they're going to be the 1 seed. Anything is possible at that point. But they are not a top 2 team in the league. But you know what? They're going to feast on an easy schedule, probably go like 14-3, have the 1 seed, home field advantage, and they deserve it. But
If you told Eagles fans going in this year that the biggest criticism they got was not being top 2, we would be ecstatic. So let's just keep riding this great year. Eagles,
yeah, well,
Phillies, it's a great time. Sixers are going to have a great year.
I want you to get a tattoo like that one very large Philly fan who has, the
Oh, the one, the
fanatic
full
and
body
gritty.
one?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that was incredible.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. That will probably be a Halloween costume for many Philly fans. I will happily pass.
Including my 18-month-old child. All in there.
18 months already?
Just about, yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I'm
Happens
trying to get a
fast.
Fanatic costume. I saw this incredible thing at the playoff game. Fanatic brought this little kid on, and he had like it was like a full Fanatic suit, but just the arms and the legs. I'll have to find a picture for y'all. Cool. It'll be my league picture.
There you go. Something to look at in that matchup other than my face. So, All right, Bodson.
All right.
Say hi to
Have a
Lizzie
good one, everyone.
for us, for the league, all right? And